So hopefully when you do an estate plan, everything goes easy from the beginning to the end. You get what you want, but oftentimes along the way, you either need advice or maybe even more, you need some legal representation to help you with some problems. One of our guests today, Mark Abel, is an attorney who does trust and estate planning all the way from hopefully everything goes smoothly up front to we forgot something along the way or something changed to nasty siblings pop out of nowhere and what does that all entail. And recently moved his practice from Redlands, California to Arcadia. Mark, thanks so much for taking time with us today.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So how'd you end up specifically in this niche of estate planning and probate and related litigation?
Yeah, so when I graduated law school, I started doing complex civil litigation. And that just simply means that you're representing multiple parties in the same lawsuit. It doesn't have the same certification as class action litigation because maybe it's, there's some issue with, a difference in claims. So not everyone has the same exact claim, but still you lump a large number of people together in one lawsuit. And then once I started doing that type of litigation, I ended up kind of transitioning into just doing a lot of estate planning, and those two kind of melded, which allowed me to do this kind of niche area, which is trust and estate litigation.
So it seems to me estate planning, is hopefully designing a path where you avoid litigation, and estate litigation is where something went wrong. So do you handle your own clients' estates through litigation, or is it purely other people's estates have problems that you end up litigating involved with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of the time as the drafting attorney for an estate plan, you're going to primarily keep that role separate. And then if there's some type of administration, you might have other individuals that come on board because there could at some point in the future, be some issue that might arise where you would become a percipient witness, meaning that you would be the individual that witnessed the execution of the document. And so you would have some important things to say. So the majority of the time, if I'm going to do the plan, that's pretty much going to be my role. And then the majority of the time for other documents that come to me for if there's some type of issue, or even if there's not an issue, but they just want to do like a normal administration where there's not really any dispute or anything, then we'll go ahead and handle that for them as well.
I know there's a whole range of estates from, small estates that fall below regular probate to affidavit probate, all the way to major estates and such. And we all like to get the biggest cases we can. As a realtor, I want as much property as I can, but I end up in a certain demographic more often than not. How would you describe your most common case?
So we represent kind of just typical average people, I would say. And in that sense, most of my clients, maybe they have a small business. They typically have like one or two properties, probably a primary residence, maybe a rental or some vacation house or something like that. Just good people. So.
One of the things I find is that when mom or dad leave property to family members, oftentimes mom and dad might have been successful enough to manage all that and to accumulate that over time, and they're turning over to children who may have never bought or sold a property before. And I don't want to say are incapable of managing it, but it's maybe certainly beyond their current tasks and their current skill level. And so often it seems that one or two things happen. Either they get a fiduciary to do the work for them, or the attorney is kind of called on to be the administrator, but they really aren't the administrator. And it seems like it gets kind of stuck in the middle sometimes, where the family just can't get it done, or the attorney doesn't do that as part of their job. How do you bridge that gap between kind of where your job as attorney ends and where the administrative responsibilities begins?
Yeah, so that's a good question. As an attorney, my primary duties are to provide legal advice to the fiduciary, and that could either be the individual that's named as the executor under a will, or successor trustee under the trust, or an administrator of an estate if there was like an intestate succession. So I will advise them, and then I tell them that I go to court and I prepare the paperwork and talk to the judge and get authority from the judge through a series of orders that they can then use to carry out kind of like the day-to-day things that need to be done. So if they need to go to the bank, I'll get them all the paperwork in line and the orders necessary, the letters testamentary, letters of administration, certifications of trust, whatever they need to go talk to the bankers, escrow companies, things like that.
Okay. But then I'm sure you come across cases where maybe the client just doesn't sign the papers and they just don't know to understand it, understand how every signature is important, every piece of paper is important. Maybe they're not bondable. So how do you have helped those customers through, or do you coach them up, or is there a third party you bring in, or how do you kind of help when they are struggling to handle the administrative duties, which I think it's almost like a whole job, right? The reason why the statute pays them fees is it is almost like a job for many people, and most of us are busy with other things. So, and I don't mean to put anybody down. Look, I had to administer a estate for a family member, and I'm a busy guy. It was hard to do. So how do you advise clients maybe if they need some additional help, or do you just encourage them to get through it, or what's the most common case for you when you find those kind of challenges?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, as you know from experience, it is a lot of work. So we try and be upfront with them at the initial meeting, and we provide them with bond applications and just basically say, look, there's a good chance that if this goes to court, you're going to have to put up a bond. So let's go ahead and see what you're bondable for right now before we even file any paperwork. And this are all the things that you're going to have to do. So do you have the time commitment? Do you have the ability to go through and kind of manage these issues and show up to court and do all these details? And there's been occasions when people have, said, it's not really something I want to do. And it's like, that's totally understandable. We'd rather not put you in that fiduciary capacity to avoid a potential problem than put you in the fiduciary capacity and then have you, have some type of issue later on. So in those scenarios, what we'll do is then we'll probably turn to a private professional fiduciary. And those are individuals that are licensed, have undergone training, and their primary duty is to basically be a trustee for a trust and administer it, or, be an administrator for an estate, and the courts are often familiar with them because there's not a whole lot of them throughout the state of California. And we'll just go to one of their offices and interview them and see if they get along with the family dynamic and everything, if it's something that they want to take on.
It is amazing to me how busy those fiduciaries are. There's so few. The ones I meet are usually pretty good, and they're all busy. And I think if I was looking for a career to start over again, maybe, or if somebody asked me, what's a field that I'm not really an attorney, or maybe I am an attorney, what's an area I can go into? Fiduciaries, I think, is a growing field with less and less people, and I'm not really quite sure exactly why. So that's why I kind of ask those questions. So, what are I want to ask the question tactfully, and I certainly haven't had this experience with you where a customer or client isn't happy. But I will say that being the real estate agent, sometimes I get kind of the whisper that they won't tell the attorney, and it just seems that the process, can be so cumbersome and administrative that the vast majority of clients aren't happy with the attorney. Now, that's because I deal with a wide range of attorneys, and like any business, there's the 10% who are great, the 90% who are kind of, dragging the rest down. What is it you see that you do different to help your clients have the experience you want them to have versus the experiences you hear clients have with other firms or other attorneys?
Yeah, so I can't really talk to anybody else's experience on that, but I just know that personally what we do is we try and keep everybody informed, and basically we try to tell them up front as best we can how we think the process is going to go. Now, obviously, we can't offer any guarantees. Obviously, there's always things that come up just due to the nature of the type of work that we do. But we figure as long as we can basically keep the lines of communication open with people, they're appreciative of that. So.
Now, in your estate litigation business, do you handle litigation for people who have estate plans drawn by other attorneys, and now all of a sudden now there's a problem and you're brought in to either fix or defend the problem? Is that part of your practice?
Yeah, so we never comment on any pending litigation, but in the past, it's been issues where there's been either an estate plan was not executed properly, meaning, some documents were not put in place. There's issues where there was questions regarding the capacity of the individual to execute a plan. And then there's also issues where maybe the plan was put in place, but as you know, sometimes when you're doing trust, it's got to be funded properly for everything to be carried out. And so maybe for one reason or another, some properties were not properly put into the trust or something like that. So it's just a wide variety of issues that pop up.
I tell customers that last case, not funding the trust, like buying a safe deposit box. You bring it home, you get installed, it's all shiny, new. You take pictures, you share it with your family, but you never put your important items in the safe deposit box. You know, you have a great estate plan, but it's not worth much if the properties aren't. There's exceptions, obviously, but as a general rule, you've not bought what you thought you're getting. I think with the fancy box you have of all your documents.
Yeah, and it can be unfortunate too, because a lot of times what might happen is that it will be funded, some real estate will be funded properly initially. And then obviously as life goes on, people change houses, sell properties, buy other properties, refinance and things like that. So for one reason or another, maybe initially it started off being properly funded, but then later in time ended up becoming unfunded. So it can be kind of an unfortunate situation sometimes.
Do you offer clients the ability to do a checkup annually, every couple of years? What do you advise, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, so we do. I started off initially doing like an annual checkup. That ended up being, it found like most people didn't really have much to do, so we kind of moved it back a little bit. So I tell them anytime they get married, divorced, or have a child or lose a child. So anytime there's like a change in the family event, that's obviously an event where we like to sit down and meet with people. And then anytime when they either have an increase or a decrease in their assets, so buying property, selling property, winning the lottery, things like that. That would be another situation where we want to check in with somebody, make sure that basically what they still have is going to carry out and do and accomplish what they still intend in their wishes.
So, and if this is a little personal, feel free to tell me. But I think as a real estate agent, we're always curious. As an attorney, what do you do for business development? What are your activities? Is it just merely you have a reputation, people come to you and that's sufficient? Do you do certain activities that publicize your services or help you get out in the marketplace? What are your business development activities looking like?
Yeah, so as far as business development, it's a lot of referral. Now at this point, it's coming a lot of referrals from existing clients and past clients and things like that. So I do what I can to basically nurture those relationships. Like I said, checking in with people, making sure everything's staying up to date on their end. And then we have newsletters and things like where we keep everyone who is one of our clients up to date on kind of changes that might be coming in the law or in various aspects that might impact them that they want to be made aware of. And we found that people pass that on to some of their friends and family and say you should check this out in case you haven't already. So.
Lastly, obviously being a real estate agent, we're obviously most interested in when there's real estate involved.
Mm-hmm.
I think most realtors imagine that attorneys sit in their office like Santa Claus handing out candy canes, that you have so many real estate listings you hand out. But I know that some of your business comes from real estate agents, and also many of your customers come attached with a real estate agent as well. So I guess I would ask, what are some of the best practices you've seen real estate agents do when they work with you or your clients that you say, wow, this is really above and beyond the kind of person I want my clients to work with more often? Or conversely, what are some of the things you've seen them do that you want them to avoid?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, obviously we're all, professionals, and so just a degree of professionalism and, is always appreciated. One thing that my clients don't particularly appreciate is if they get, offers, I guess, from either obviously lowballed, because people think they can take advantage of a situation from someone that's deceased or a property that's in probate. And then on the flip side, I've been really impressed by working with some agents and brokers that are just really well informed in, the whole process, start to finish, about how a probate sale works or a trust sale, something of that nature. Because, as you know, and I'm sure your audience knows, there are some differences between just a regular residential purchase and sale, a standard, if there's such thing as a standard transaction, but there are a few key differences. So.
I always tell people it's never really a problem until it's a problem. Then
Right.
It's a problem. So it's one of those things where, generally speaking, they go through about the same, but then you didn't protect yourself, that's when it comes back and bites you on it. Well, look, Mark, I know you're busy. I really appreciate your time. I know your website is trustabel.com, trustabell.com, and on there it has your phone number prominently. It says contact us today. Is the best way to reach you the website and make the phone call?
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you. Thanks very much.